Good morning. Randall J here with some more coherent drivel. Let's talk about how the mind actually works today. What is consciousness? Why do we have consciousness? I'm not going to talk about it scientifically because, there used to be neurons and gluons, I think. And now, last I heard, they found like 2,000, 3,000 different kinds of cells in the brain. And they're talking about the brain functions on a quantum level. I don't know about that. Nobody knows about that. But so it's not exactly how it works. It's more why it works. I think knowing why we are the way we are can be very important to us individually and culturally, societally, and socially. That's more useful and more important. And it's not that complicated. When you want to look for answers, you got to look at the big picture of things. And, we've evolved, like 4 million years ago, we were ape-like. And we're mammals, and our brains are very comparable, even with dog brains. The pieces and parts inside of our brains are very similar with other mammals. Even I believe even other species like birds and maybe even reptiles. I'm not sure, but brains have developed in such a way that they are similar amongst animals. Ours just happens to be bigger in the front, And now, why is this? Why are we the way we are? And, it's just like evolution of the eye. It started out with, bacteria or something just seeking heat, so they didn't freeze. And then it was like shadows. And then they started to be able to detect shapes a little better, separate the prey from the carnivores, from the predators, prey from the predators. And so over a billion years or so, our eyes develop. They get more and more complex. And other animals see differently than we do. Now, why is that? It's because of the specialization of the lifestyle, of the survival. Our eyes have adapted for our own survival. We see colors so we can tell when the fruit is ripe. And some animals are better at motion detecting. Some animals see at night because they feed at night. So these are all products of evolution. And as humans, we don't like to think that our brain, we want to be separate. We think we're separate. We think we're all individual and our minds are so complex and, blah, blah, blah. But the truth of the matter is our minds, our brains are products of our minds. Our brain makes our mind, and our brain is a product of evolution, just like our eyes and our fingers. Our brain is a survival mechanism. And that's where consciousness comes from, you can see this in all animals. You can see consciousness, The squirrels, they're smart enough to bury their nuts, right? And like wild dogs, they work in packs, And in order to do that, you have to think, where's that prey going to go? What's the next move? What are my partners doing? You know, and that is thinking. It is. That's consciousness. I think most all animals have consciousness. Even things like a praying mantis, you know, stalking its prey. Yeah. Even things like spiders, you know, they have to think, you know, something gets caught in the web, you know, how big is it? How do I approach it without it getting me? You know, I mean, so consciousness has arrived quite naturally through survival mechanisms. And now we look at the human mind, you know, what's so special about us, you know? Well, we just had to learn all these things, you know, for survival mechanisms. And our emotions are also survival mechanisms. Sometimes anger is useful. You know, if somebody's stealing your chickens, you know, you live 100 years ago, somebody's stealing your chickens, you know, you might be nice at first. You might say, well, if you're hungry, you know, you can help me plant this crop or something and I'll feed you, you know. But if somebody steals your chicken 2 or 3 times, well, then you would kill them because, you know, a couple 100 years ago, whatever, you know, you need to feed your own family. So, see, anger would be useful in a situation like that. And then love also is a useful thing because, you know, people need each other for survival. And a committed relationship can do well for helping people survive. So that's useful. And then there's greed, which is kind of out of hand because greed is a survival mechanism, you know. We all want enough to eat, you know. If you can stock up some apples behind a rock or something, you know, have a little food supply, last a little while. You know, even lions and tigers do that stuff, right? You know, leopards, they'll take a carcass up a tree, and they'll eat their fill, and they'll come back later. You know, they kind of hide it up in the tree, or, you know, lions protect their kill so they can come back and get it later. Well, we're the same way, you know. But greed has gotten out of hand because people, they don't realize it, but, you know, it's a survival mechanism that has, you know, out of control. And, you know, these millionaires and billionaires have more than they need, and they don't understand why they keep wanting more and more and more and more. It's a survival mechanism that's out of control. So it's very important to realize, to be in touch with our animal instincts, because when we realize who we are and why we act the way we do, then we have much more control over our actions. We can figure out what's more appropriate in our modern day society. You know, what's necessary, what's not necessary. But you gotta, like, if you see where it's coming from, you have much more control over it. And the more you understand it, the more you control it. The more you can be who you want to be instead of what evolution has programmed us to be. You know, we're programmed. Those pieces of our brain are our programming. They have their individual characteristics, their drive systems, you know. And in modern day society, in civilization, we are trying to reprogram